Hey friends, it's Liz, your official craft nerd, coming at you as a hot mess express today. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this is really why I don't get in front of the camera. Because most days by the time I'm done with work and I have the time to do things like this is the situation. This is the work from home, hair scrunchy, maybe makeup on, maybe it's coming off. I mean, oh my gosh. Anyway, it's all right, guys? It does not matter. So, in any case, this video today is very special. This is going to be a mega video for you guys. This is a collection of all of my favorite DIYs that I've done this year so far. I wanted to kind of throw together something like this because I've had so many new subscribers over the past few months, and I know that maybe many of you haven't even seen some of these projects yet, and so I definitely wanted to take the time to share those again for you guys, and just really take a moment to thank y'all for just all the love and the support and the appreciation that you guys give me. I mean, I honestly never thought I would be where I am today doing this, and I hope to be maybe somewhere even further in the future, but for right now, you guys, like, this is just so much fun for me, just to be able to share stuff with you guys. I feel like I've grown so much as a person and an individual, and as a crafter. I've been inspired by many, and it's a good feeling to know that maybe I've inspired a few people too to do some just really wonderful creative things in their own homes. And I don't know, you guys, there's really no words to say how I feel. Like, I enjoy and literally giggle over your guys' comments. You guys are so sweet to me and so kind, and I just want all of you to know that I do read these. Every single one of them, I read them. I definitely try when I can to respond to everyone. It's not always possible, but definitely know that I see them and I read them, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I love y'all so much. You are my nerdy family, so definitely thank you so much for sticking around. And hey, if you are new, if this is your first time here, you just so happen to stumble upon my big ol' awesome mega video that I got going on, welcome. And I really hope you stick around. I do hope you enjoy what you see. And you guys just keep an eye out for the community tab. And if you follow me on Instagram, I will be announcing a collaboration that I'm doing next week. So I will be posting, I believe it's going to be on Saturday for that one. I'm definitely probably going to still try to post something for you on my normal Thursday. But yeah, the collaboration is going to be sweet, you guys. And I'm telling you, I am humbled and honored that this person is working with me, and she is, as far as I'm concerned, the master, the queen of Shabby Chic, and I am in awe. So if you guys have never seen or heard of her before, y'all do not know what you're missing. You need to get to her channel. So, but I'm only going to drop that teaser right now. I want to wait until this week to really kind of share more about who that is and everything. So I'm going to wrap this up because it's, y'all know I'm learning, and I'm really trying to be okay with being on camera. So, but it's a struggle, and I'm struggling right now. So I love y'all. I appreciate you guys so much. And I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. So until next time, you guys, stay safe. So for my first project, I wanted to create this little drawer set that could be used to place like any of your little remnants of things, you know, like scraps of, you know, fabric or, you know, buttons, things like that. You know, it's meant for little small things. And I wanted it to have a vintage style to it. This is a piece that I still have up in my craft room. I love the way that it looks. I love the color. I could not part with it. So it is one of my favorite things that I've done so far. And I'm just taking these boxes that you can pick up from your Dollar Tree. If you cannot find these at Dollar Tree, y'all, I have found them at Michael's. They are 98 cents at Michael's, and I'm telling you, the quality of them are much better at Michael's, just FYI. But for this video, I did use the Dollar Tree versions. I did find the ones that all pretty much equaled up to each other, as we again all know that these wood pieces that you find from Dollar Tree really aren't always created equal. So the top and the bottom portion of that, I did use paint stir sticks that I did trim down, and I did want them to kind of overlap, so they are measured out the way they are on purpose. Then I'm taking some paint that I have from Plaid. This is actually, it is called, oh my goodness. Of course, I can't even read the name of this. You know what? Maybe this is from Plaid. It's called Ceramicoat, and the color is Palmetto. And I just absolutely adored this green. Like, it is such an older, more vintage color green. It's very light, and I don't know, it just worked perfect for this project. So it only took one coat to completely cover my boxes, the drawers there. And of course, I didn't need to do the backs of those drawers. Nobody is going to see those. But again, painting is definitely a preference that you can make your decision on. If you want it completely covered, if you want the insides and all of that done, go for it. But a lot of times I'm really only going to be concerned with what you're going to see. So if it's something on the inside that nobody's going to pay attention to, and especially if this is a project just for myself, I'm not worried about it. So once that paint is dried, I'm actually taking some of this scrapbook paper that I have. You guys have seen videos in the past. Like, I love scrapbook paper. I get it all the time. I have tons of it already. But I just was really attracted to this particular pattern that was on this paper. I thought it was very pretty. Definitely was going to go with that vintage vibe. I measured out the front of those boxes, and really what I'm doing here, I was just kind of wetting down the edges and just tearing off pieces of that scrap paper. And the reason being is I wanted it to be definitely worn looking, like it's aged. And there's many ways to do this, you guys. I know I've tried different ways in the past. You can wet it, you can just literally just tear it towards you, and you'll still get that same effect. So just have fun with it, whatever way works for you. But I'm going to take this Mod Podge as well, and I'm going to just basically Mod Podge it right down on the front of these boxes. That's the look I was going for my drawers, and it was super simple to do. So just put a layer down, put down your piece of scrap paper, and then go ahead and, you can what I'm doing here is just taking those bubbles out, making it smooth down on the edges and whatnot. But again, if you've seen things that I've done before, I do not worry so much if it bubbles, if it wrinkles. I love all that. I feel like it just gives it more detail, more character. So don't stress out if it's not perfect, you guys, because like I've said before too, embrace the imperfections. I mean, that is what gives your pieces definite character and that one-of-a-kind look. So once I have all of these glued down and Mod Podge down, and of course this Mod Podge that I'm using, this is a matte Mod Podge. I prefer the matte over glossy for most of my projects because, again, I like that vintage look. I like, the aged, worn look. And for me, the gloss is just too much. Definitely makes it look too new. So I prefer just doing the matte. I also figured, I'm going to do this to the top of this box too, just because, the paint stir sticks look fine by themselves. But, I always keep on adding. That's just kind of what I do. And really, when you guys are doing like a shabby chic type thing, you really can't do too much. It's just whatever you feel looks good, whatever makes you happy when you're making it, that's really all that matters here. So I just felt like this needed that little bit of extra, and so I did the same technique and ripped up the edges and put that on the top of this box. So once those were dry, I'm taking some of my antique Waverly wax, And I am going to, first of all, I'm going to take these little half beads that I've gotten off Amazon, and I'm just coating them and coloring them in that wax color. And you can just paint it on there, wipe them down, and all I did was glue them right on. Now, this is just for decorative purposes. If you choose to use it to actually put things in and you want to be able to pull open the drawers and everything, you may want to try like an actual little knob that you can screw in. That way it actually is more durable. It'll still work and open if you pull on these, but you know, this was just more of a decorative piece for me, so you know, I just use those beads. What I'm doing here is taking that same wax and I'm roughing up those edges. I'm going to distress the edges with it. I'm going to go over the paper. I'm going to make sure that especially those ripped up pieces of the paper that's still pretty white and doesn't have any pattern on it, I want to make sure that that has some of this wax on it as well, because you can see already that completely aged up this drawer like immediately, and that was precisely the look that I was going for. And I'm going to do that to all of these drawers. I'm going to make sure I get my edges. I like to dirty it up. Now, this again is a preference. If you guys don't prefer to have all this kind of distressing on it, you definitely do not have to do that. Just for this piece, though, that's what I was going for. And so that's what I did. Now I even am going to go ahead and do this on the top, just like I did on those drawers as well. And I go around the whole drawer set itself just to make sure that it's all very cohesive. But you guys, I love how this just completely aged it within seconds. I mean, it is, like I said, by far one of my favorite things to do. And this is definitely the look that I go for anytime I'm creating something, especially for my own home. I just love this look. I'm so drawn to this look. I love things that look old and aged and tell a story. And in my mind, this is something that was telling a story. This is something that has been passed down, you know, for years and years and years, and it's loved. It could be like a little jewelry box, a little trinket box, whatever. But I really, really, really loved how this turned out. So this is, I'm just sticking these drawers back in. And you guys, it just all comes together. Oh, you guys, I'm so in love with this. This is, again, one of my favorite pieces to date, and I still have it up and absolutely adore it. Right along into the next project. This was something really fun I did in a collaboration a few months back. This was, I believe, for Mother's Day, and it was a Mother of Pearl challenge that I did that Crafty Leanie was hosting. And I just absolutely adore these cameras. When I found them at Dollar Tree, I picked a bunch of them up because, again, some of these things that you find there, like if you don't snag it when you find it, there's a good possibility you'll never see it again. And I love cameras. I love anything to do with cameras. And coming from a photographer background, you know, I'm obsessed. I always pick up things that have cameras on it. So I just took these wooden camera, and again, this is just like a photo frame. And I took out the glass and everything in the middle, and I gave it 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint and plaster. And then I'm taking some of this tissue paper. I believe I got this from Hobby Lobby. I really loved how this pattern looked and just thought it was so pretty. And, you know, keeping in mind that if this was something I were to give, you know, say my mother for Mother's Day, I wanted it to just feel extra, you know, special and pretty. So I just Mod Podged that tissue paper down. Tissue paper is one of my favorite things to Mod Podge because it is so easy to clean up. And as you see here, I'm just taking my sanding block and going over those edges, and it just completely takes off those edges once that Mod Podge is dried. So you have a nice, smooth, clean product once it's all said and done. And of course, there I go with my little ladybug vacuum, which I still use all the time. And I think many of you have one yourself at this point. It is a very recommended product for sure for a crafter. It is so awesome. And it is going to be in my Amazon store, which, you know, shameless plug here, but I do finally have a storefront. and I will be adding all of my favorite goodies and must-haves that I get from Amazon in there for you, so you can definitely take a look, see what you need, and purchase off of there. So with this, as you can tell, I did rough it up, did my antiquing wax to the sides, and then I took one of those large Sola wood flowers that I had, and I placed it right in the middle of that where the picture frame would go, like your picture. And that was it. Like, I took a piece of ribbon here and I used it to make a strap. And this was a simple, quick, and easy project that, yeah, this is even still hanging up. This is actually sitting in my living room. It's on a wall shelf. And I just love this one. So again, another really super easy DIY that I did was I took these, well, this is a little milk jug that I got from Dollar Tree. Now, I know a lot of people were having a hard time finding them, so I also did a little teapot or little sugar pot thing that I'm flipping. So mind you can do, you know, any kind of little pot or tea kettle or whatever with this, but those were the two that I used. And these are some molds that I get off Amazon that have some little ornate designs and cherubs and stuff like that. And one of my tricks is I like to use hot glue in my molds, and it just gives you that instant mold really quick. Now, there are ways to use clay, modeling clay, like air dry clay. You can put them in your molds as well. I haven't really played around with that yet. I do want to, but hot glue has always been my go-to because it's so fast and so easy to use, and definitely gets the job done. So all I did was made one of those little ornate pieces, and then I glued the hot glue piece onto my little pot there. And then once it was all dry, I went ahead and painted it up. Now, this was an error that I made, was for this particular piece, the hot glue to the glue was not sticking. So I had to actually use some super glue and re-glue this back down onto the pot because it was not working. And in some cases it doesn't, you know, like if it's on wood, it's never been an issue, but for this, I think it's because it was porcelain, it wasn't having it. So I'm just using some of this here I go again, the super glue, and I'm gluing down my piece to the pot itself, and then I'll go ahead and paint, excuse me, I'll paint over it. And really, that's pretty much all there is to these DIYs. Now, you're gonna add some little embellishments here and there and definitely make it your own, which you'll see here. Of course, I'm bringing out my antique wax because I still want to kind of age it up just a little bit, but really just on those ornate details, because that's where I want it to look like it's been worn and aged pretty well. What I did here was took some little flowers. I believe these were flowers I got from Hobby Lobby. They're fabric flowers as well as some paper flowers that you can find in their paper section. And they do have their sales like every other week on these things. And I love them. So I use them all the time for so many different things. But they are in the paper crafting section or in the wedding section. If you go to the His and Hers line, they have a lot of little paper floral and fabric floral flowers that you can use. Right here, I'm just taking little scraps of ribbon, kind of making my own little like messy bow type situation. And I'm just gluing that on there as well. And really, this is just to basically give these little pots that extra shabby chic type look. And it just makes them super, super adorable. And I just fell in love with these. And with this, I'm just taking some ribbon, just kind of going around the outside bottom portion of this, just to jazz it up just a little bit more. And I think I'm doing it on the top as well. It's so funny to kind of like rewatch this. Am I doing it on the top? No, that's the bottom. I'm doing a second layer on the bottom. You guys, it's so funny to kind of rewatch these and have to remember just exactly what I was doing when I was doing it. So you have to kind of bear with me on this, but it was so much fun, and these were so easy to do. And you could do this, like I said, with anything. Like if you find these little kind of pots and whatnot at the Dollar Tree, or if you go thrifting, like I absolutely love to do, you could come across these little tea kettles or tea sugar pots and stuff like that all the time, and for really cheap. And all you got to do is just slap some paint on there and glue some flowers, and you guys, look, you have just the cutest little shabby chic little tea kettle and milk pot that turn into planters and whatever you want. I just love them. So for this one, I'm showing you, this was the inspiration piece. I did an inspiration or an Inspire Me challenge with DIY with Amber. And this was her piece that she created using these little drawers, again from Dollar Tree, as well as the little crates too. So that piece inspired me to create one of my own. And here you see me gluing these together. I'm going to use some of that super wood glue as well as the hot glue because I wanted this to stay sturdy. I wanted it to last longer. And you guys know that sometimes hot glue doesn't necessarily mean forever. So I just used both on this case. So, and the hot glue definitely helps speed up the drying process and keeping these together quicker. So I glued the 4 little boxes together like so, and then I'm going to take my crates, and these are the ones that didn't have the separations in the slats. So I know Dollar Tree carried both kinds, but these were the kinds that I had on hand, and I actually really prefer these, I think, over the other, just because they're a little bit larger. And so I'm gluing 2 of them on top of my 4 little boxes. And then I'm taking 1 more of these crates and I'm going to place it down in the very center of the 2 crates on top. So once these were all glued down, I kind of placed the drawers back in just to get an idea of which drawer went into what box, because sometimes those drawers do not want to fit back in them boxes. It's crazy. But I placed a little piece of tape on them just so I can kind of make sure I can pull them back out, obviously, because we switched them around. And here I'm just taking some of that grout filler stuff that's, I can never think of the name of it, but it's like that sand caulking stuff, and I'm just filling up those cracks and holes that are just really apparent. And I love that stuff because it dries pretty well and pretty fast, so you can go ahead and get your painting and everything in. For this, I'm actually using some of my Rust-Oleum linen chalk paint to coat this up. Now, I was using my really nice big chippy brush, but you know, it was too big for the job and not getting in those edges and corners like I needed. So I just pulled out a regular old flat brush and started to paint the rest of this up just like you see here. I think I only had to do 1 coat for the whole project, but again, it's probably preference on if you think it needs to be 2. And it also depends on the wood that you use. Sometimes these Dollar Tree wood pieces really suck up the paint and you have to do more than 1 coat, but I think this time around it wasn't too bad. So I'm painting all the edges, and I paint the bottoms, the sides, the back, and then on the top 3 crates I actually painted the insides on those. I do take the drawers, I'm going to paint the sides and the fronts of the drawers as well. I do not guys, words, I do not paint the inside. I'm not worried again about the inside because nobody's going to see that. So taking similar to that technique I did on my very first project, I'm cutting out some scrap paper that I really liked, and I'm going to decoupage them on the front of my drawer pieces. Now this time around I took a wet wipe and I'm just kind of wetting down the corners and the edges and ripping it towards me to get that the aged vintage look. You guys know how I like doing that. So rip it up, tear it up, distress it up, however you like. And then I decoupage it to the front of my drawers. Again, using the matte Mod Podge. For all of these, I just put down a coat, place my paper, smooth it out as best I can, not really too worried about it, and then I'll go ahead and coat it one more time with the Mod Podge. Now, once all of these drawers are done and dry, I'm going to take these little tiny handles that I found again in the paper section at Hobby Lobby. And they're just these little tiny pulls that I think are super adorable. They do come with screws, I believe, but for whatever reason, this packet that I had did not. So I just super glued these bad boys right on the front, and it worked perfect. And these actually work. Like, you can pull open the drawers using those pulls, and they didn't come off. It was just, I don't know. I just loved how they looked with the paper, and you can kind of see too, I took some of that pink, I think it's like ballet slipper, and I used that to distress the white. And then I just style it. Like, you could use this in your bathroom, you can use this in your kitchen, or of course in your bedroom, and put little cutesy things on there, tchotchkes or whatnot, and just have fun with it. So this was definitely one really pretty inspiration piece that I absolutely loved. So this was another inspiration piece by Daphne's Homescape. This was in that same video, the collaboration that I did with DIY with Amber. And she did this super adorable, like stacked pot planter ordeal that I absolutely thought was just amazing. So these little planters you can find at Dollar Tree, super cheap. I think they come in a packet of like two for a dollar, four for a dollar, two for a dollar. I can't remember. And I've had them around because I've used them for other projects before. So basically, I'm just taking that linen paint again, and I'm giving both of these a good coat. And I do kind of paint the inside just a little bit because of the way these are going to be stacked. You know, I didn't want any of that terracotta to kind of show through. So I'm taking one of these dowel rods, I'm painting that in that linen white as well. And you can see that these terracotta pots, they have the little holes in the bottom. So those dowel rods actually fit really nicely in those holes. So what I'm doing here is taking some of this linen fabric that I purchased off Amazon. Again, this should be available in my store. And I'm just using that to kind of go around the top and just add a little bit extra to my pots. So it's not just, you know, stark white. You know, I have to have a little bit of something to it. So I love adding just plain old linen fabric or, you know, ribbons and stuff like that. So what I'm doing here is taking some of the foam for, you know, your floral foam, just gluing it down in the middle of the bottom pot, and then I'm going to put my dowel rod up through my first pot. And then I realized it was probably going to be a little bit too tall, and so I trimmed it down just a little bit. And now I'm just going to go ahead and stick this right down into my floral foam. And I do add a little bit of glue down in there just to help secure that hold, but it goes in there quite nicely and holds up fairly well. So once I stood this up, I knew I was going to have to probably add a little bit. Well, obviously I'm going to add some more floral foam into the top of this, but I wanted to make sure that it had a secure hold on the bottom. So I'm just taking one of these little wood round pieces that I've had. I think I got these from like Arteza a while back. And I'm just going to glue and super glue down my terracotta pot to the wood round. And that actually helped with the base of this. So the end product of this is you just shove some flowers in there, guys. I had some of this really pretty hangy vine stuff and some of these florals, and I just put them in there, and that I added the little floral, or not floral, but the little fabric bows on the sides there too. And I just thought this was so sweet and so special. And again, this is another project that is still hanging up in my craft room today. Okay, so for this one, I so loved this wreath. I had gotten a bunch of fabric sent to me by burlapfabric.com, and I was really excited to put this to use in making a really fun shabby chic wreath. Now, I did decide to take some of this burlap ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree to use as my base on this wreath. Now, I think this was an 18-inch wreath, but I cannot say to quote me on that because I don't really remember. But it is a fairly large one. I had made some smaller kind of shabby chic type wreaths before, and I really wanted to have a larger version to really be noticeable, so you can really see it on your door, So this I think took about 2 rolls of the Dollar Tree ribbon. But again, this is, and it, I know it's kind of see-through. Their burlap is not like super thick or anything like that, but it was just to add a base basically to my wreath to hide that the wire and everything. Now these were little linen strips that come on a roll from Burlap Fabrics, and I really like these. They sent me quite a few of these linen strips because really that's my favorite. I love using linen on things. And this ribbon was just perfect. It was the right width. I believe these are 1 inch, the 1 inch size ribbon, or not ribbon, 1 inch size linen strips that they had. And I basically just kind of try to measure them out to be equal sizes. And I also cut up some other ribbons that I had, some burlap with some lace on it. I had some just lace material, some lace ribbon, and I'm going to make a bunch of shabby bows or messy bows. And the process is super simple. As you see, you're just basically kind of crisscrossing all of the different materials back and forth, and then you're going to basically cinch them up in the middle. I just use twine to do that, but you can add as many layers as you feel necessary. Now, I'll tell you, the more layers that you add, the messier that it'll look, and actually probably be a lot more fuller. But it is definitely a preference to you on how you want it to look. So I just take a piece of this twine, I tie it around the middle of this just like so, and it just bunches it all together. Then you just kind of fluff it out and mess around with it, and you can see how it just gives this really adorable, messy looking bow. Like, I mean, there's really no other way to describe it other than it is messy. It's not your perfect, wrap type bow, but I love that. So I cannot remember, and I apologize, but I don't remember how many of these I had to make to go around my wreath. I know it was quite a few, but all you have to do at this point, once you've made all of your bows, is just glue them down right on top of the wreath form itself. And that's the process that I do here. I'm just going to kind of space them out as best as I can so that they, I'm kind of just eyeballing to see where I want to have all of my ribbons. And I do leave a space at the bottom because I plan to put a larger ribbon at the base of the wreath itself. So once it's completely filled up, and you can kind of see there, I did have some gaps and whatnot. I had to make a couple little filler bows to kind of go back in. And that's one of the great things about this is there's really no way to mess this up. Like, you could have definitely left it have like the little gaps or whatnot, or you can just go back in and simply start putting some more fabric in there, bunching it up, and it helps it out immensely. So this is me making the larger bow. Now, I've said it before, I am not a professional bow maker, you guys. Like, I basically fake it till I make it on this type of stuff. So all I did was just fold this over. This is also fabric from burlapfabrics.com, and I really like the burlap because it had that really pretty lace overlay over top of it, and I thought this would make a great center bow for the bottom of my wreath. And all I did, as you see, was I folded it over, tied some twine around the middle to kind of cinch it up. I'm taking a piece of that linen and I'm going to wrap it around the center just to make it a little bit prettier. And then I'm going to make my own tails. So if you have easier ways to make bows, you know, ways that you prefer to do it, I mean, by all means, do your own kind of bow. You know, I have learned and I've tried and I've done a bunch of different varieties, but you know, for me, this was just the easiest way. And I don't care if it's professional or not. I think it looks cute. So, making my tails, all I did was just, as you saw, just made those little cuts there. Now I do go in with the hot glue and kind of glue down that overlay, because it is not like glued down throughout the entire thing. It's actually very loose. So if you even wanted to, you could separate the overlay from the burlap itself and use the pieces separately, but definitely up to you. So I cut those in half. I'm just going to kind of cinch up the top, and I will end up gluing that all together and gluing it to the back of the large part of my bow. Again, you guys may have a much easier way of doing the tails and everything, but for me, this is what we were rolling with, you guys. So I liked it, and in the end it looked really, really good, and you wouldn't have been able to tell that I didn't do some kind of fancy like specialty bow tying whatever, you know. So it works for me, and I really, really liked it, you guys. So all I did here was just glued my bow with a lot of glue, just stuck it right down there in the bottom. It filled up that space perfectly. Just to add a little bit more security, I did tie some twine around the bow and the floral wreath itself, just to kind of make sure that it didn't like droop or hang down or anything like that. I wanted it to be nice and secure, and of course I couldn't just leave it as is, so I had some of this beaded ribbon that I bought at Hobby Lobby like forever ago, and I just decided to start gluing it together, kind of wrapping it around itself, making a like basically a little circle pendant type piece. And once I got to the size that I liked, went ahead and I'm going to glue that right in the center of my bow itself. And really, that's all there was to this piece. Like, super, I'd say super easy, but you know, if you're into making bows, if you have the patience to do it, I feel like this is an easy bow or easy wreath to do. So it just, again, it depends on if this is something you like to do or not. I really, really loved it. I thought it turned out just awesome, and it is still something that I keep in my home. But yeah, I really, really dug this one, you guys. So I'm going to, for this next project, use that same fabric that I used on my wreath previously. And what I had going on in my head for this was, I believe I seen something on Pinterest. I'm assuming it had to have been Pinterest, but these were some really adorable fabric hearts, and they were just different. They're unique. I think anybody that makes them, you were definitely making them your own, because nobody freehands the same way. So I'm just kind of freehand cutting on this linen fabric and the burlap fabric and all of that, and making these really adorable hearts. I didn't want them to all be the same size. I didn't want them to all be the same shape. I really wanted them to look like they were almost like hand drawn. And I just cut through all of these. I think I made a total of like 5 of these hearts. And like I said, this was super easy, because there was no like measuring or anything like that. You just basically freehand these hearts up. Once those were cut, I went ahead and see this right here, what I'm using, I ripped off that lace because, you know, again, it was falling off anyway. But I can use that for something else. So I'm taking some hot glue, and all I'm doing is kind of going around the edges of these, and I'm going to go around the majority of it before I stuff it, because these are going to be stuffed. Like, preferably if you have like some pillow stuffing or whatever, definitely you can use that. I did not have that on hand. I didn't even have cotton balls on hand, which would also be a very easy, cheap way to put filling in something. Y'all, all I had was paper towel. So I'm basically just scrunching up some paper towel and shoving it on in there. And you guys, honestly, no one would know the wiser. Like, seriously. Like, nobody can see it. Nobody knows what's in there. Only you do when you're making these things. So even if you just had toilet paper, I would have used that too. But once you seal it up, it just gives these little fabric hearts, just beautiful dimension. Definitely super adorable in my opinion. Like, I probably could just continue making these over and over and over again. And I really feel like they're going to make a comeback maybe come next year for some, I don't know, maybe Valentine's. Who knows? Who knows? I think hearts could be good any time of the year. So it doesn't have to be just for a holiday. But these were so fast and easy to make. Like, I don't know. I just was obsessed with making these hearts. So once these are all cut and glued down and filled and everything, the next part is to kind of add the decals to them. I think that is probably the funnest part, because now this is where you can just get really creative and let your shabby chic obsession go nuts. So I'm basically just taking some ribbons that I have. I'm kind of, maybe gluing a strip across one, or, adding some of these buttons. Now I have this little sheet over here of buttons. Basically, I took a bunch of these buttons, and these are actually from Dollar Tree too, but I just went outside and spray painted them because I wanted them to be white. And they were all like black and brown and stuff like that from the Dollar Tree. So not what I was going for, but I love the dimension and the cuteness that adding these little buttons to these hearts did. I mean, they were just, it was so sweet and so special. Like, I just loved it. This little heart, I believe, is one of the little heart fabric things you can get from the his and her section at Hobby Lobby, which is their wedding section. Super adorable. I use those all the time too. And then I was just taking just some fabric, making little bows, gluing them on there, adding little buttons again. Like, seriously, there's really nothing you can't do with these, because you're just making them adorable. You're making them what you want to see. And like, we know Shabby Chic is just full of this beautiful, lacy, flowery, pretty goodness. And yeah, you guys, these flowers, y'all, these hearts, they are really some of my most favorite things I've ever made, and they're so simple to do, and you can do this with almost just anything. So yeah, I love these, and really this is how these turned out. And again, something that I still keep up to this day. I adore these little guys. Okay, so for this project, I received a bunch of these gorgeous flowers from Sola Wood products. And I'm obsessed with them. There's so many things you could do and make with these flowers that, like, I still have so many to use. Like, I haven't run out yet. So, but I wanted to try tea dyeing these. Now, normally I would have probably tried coffee, and I think I will try coffee next time, because I think coffee will probably be more of a darker tone. But I was like, nope, I got tea. That's what I didn't feel like making any coffee that night. So the tea was going to have to work. So I'm just going through, picking out my favorites, getting a couple here and there. And basically all you do with this, you guys, oh, and those little roses, I'm obsessed with those roses. Let me tell you real quick, those little tiny roses that you get from Sola Wood, they literally feel like velvet. And this is wood, you guys. Like, this is what's crazy. Like, they feel like velvet. They felt like a flower. And I mean, they're just gorgeous. I was obsessed with them. But to tea dye, all I did here was, dip them into the tea, kind of soak them around a little bit, and I pull them out. I let them dry. And I know maybe from the video you can't really tell, but it does give you a difference. It does stain them. It does age them. I feel like it does give it that vintage look, and that's really what I was going for. I've used these flowers before many times, and I think they're beautiful just raw. I like them raw. I think they look gorgeous just as is. But because they're raw, you can do so many different things with them. You can dye them, you can stain them. I even know some crafters that have decoupage them. So my girl Brandy over at the DIY Struggle, she has actually decoupaged some of these flowers, and it was amazing. So I did not have any of the dye that Sola Wood provides to dye your flowers whatever colors that you would like, but that wasn't going to stop me. I took some of my acrylic paint, and I love this pink. I think this is that vintage rose color that I'm obsessed with, and I believe it's by Folk Art. And I just added a bunch of water. As you can tell, I'm mixing it up, and then I'm going to dip my flowers. And y'all, that color was so gorgeous on these flowers. Like, there was something so therapeutic about hand dyeing all these flowers and seeing how they come out and how pretty they were and how different they looked. And I mean, I don't know, I probably could have sat around all night and just dyed all my flowers. But I knew I couldn't do that. I just needed to dye what was needed for my project. But yeah, I don't know if any of you guys like that, where you just, there's certain things that you do when you're crafting, whether it's you're painting or, you know, you're carving something, or you're playing with, you know, like modeling clay or something like this where you're hand dyeing something. Is it therapeutic for you? Like, I don't know. For me, crafting has always been therapeutic. Making something has always been therapeutic. But I don't know. I'm weird like that, I guess. I don't know. I am. But anyway, the next part of this, I'm taking these dirty old bottles that I've had in my garage forever and a day. And so they're gross, they're dirty, they're old. You know, whoever had them and gave them to me did not like rinse them out. So, but I wasn't worried about it because I was like, okay, nobody's going to see the insides of these. So I'm mixing up some Mod Podge with my plaster paint color because I'm painting on glass. And I really did not want to deal with the chalk paint. Sometimes when you paint on glass, if you don't let it completely dry and you go to do like a second coat, it will literally just pick the paint back up. And it could be a very long and agonizing process to paint something in glass. So the trick is adding in that Mod Podge. It does kind of help glue it down and kind of make that base, so it won't do that when you go over it another time. So, I mean, I still wait for it to dry, but, and on the bonus part of that too, when it completely dries, it doesn't chip as much. I won't say it doesn't chip at all, because I'm sure it would still chip. But if you were to just put chalk paint on glass, chances are just nicking it with your finger or, you know, scratching it up against something, it will scratch the paint off. So just an FYI there. I'm taking some of these bamboo skewers. Look, I had to slow down because I know even when I did this video initially, I could not say that. So, but I just went ahead and put some glue on the edge, the sharp point there, and kind of just stuck it into that base of the flower. All of these flowers, for the most part, have these little base butt ends on the back end. So you can do like I'm doing here, where you can kind of stick a stem in there, so you can put them up, or you can cut them off really easily if you're going to glue it down on something and you don't want that, you know, that lift on there. So I'm basically just picking a couple of my favorites here, stabbing that skewer into the back, gluing it down a little bit, just to make sure it stays. And really, that was all there was to the flower portion of this project. Now, moving along to add some of my you know, shabbiness to whatever that I do, pulling out some of this fabric. Now, this fabric, the blue, I believe, was actually a baby onesie that I got from Goodwill. And then I want to say that the what I'm pulling out right now, that kind of stained white, because I did tea stain a lot of fabrics too while I was doing all my extra staining. I stained some of the linen, which is what this is right here, so it actually changed the texture up a little bit, which was kind of cool. And then the white strips, which are actually kind of stained strips in the back, those were like toddler pants or something. I don't know. What I do a lot of times when I'm at Goodwill is I look at the fabrics, not just like blankets and sheets and stuff, but baby clothes that have a certain pattern to them or color to them or texture to them. And a lot of times I see I could use those for messy bows, and so I'll pick them up, and it's super cheap. So, you know, and it's going to get used for a good purpose. So I don't have no hardships about ripping up some clothes, not for my projects. So, but again, I'm just doing your basic, you know, messy bow. I didn't want it to be super big, like lengthwise, so it is kind of on the smaller side, but it's the same way. Do the crisscross and then take some twine and just kind of tie it up in the middle and just fluff it out, and you got yourself a really adorable messy bow. So now I'm going to take these rub-on transfers that I found at Dollar Tree. These were super cute. These were like a French, there was like French writing and little flowers and stuff like that on there, like little stamps and things like that, that were just romantic and super pretty. These were in black. Most of the rub-on transfers that I find, they're either going to be black or they're going to be like gold or silver or whatever. But I got to tell you, I am obsessed, if I don't say that enough. I really truly am with these rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree, because these went on this bottle, or these bottles, so perfectly. Like, I couldn't have asked for it to go any better. And you never know sometimes, because sometimes rub-on transfers can be very tricky. They can be very hit or miss, and it may very well have to do with what the surface is that you're putting, you know, them down on. I know a lot of times, like, if it doesn't have, like, say it's not coated or sealed, you know, it may not work as well. So I think the fact that these bottles had that Mod Podge like sealant already in the paint, it definitely helped. So I'm just scratching these on. I'm actually just using my little picker tool from Cricut that I use on like everything but probably Cricut stuff. But I don't care, I like it. So I just kind of scratch it on there like I'm writing with a pen, and these things just came off so nice. Like, seriously, I was so impressed, super happy. Like, and it was quick. It did not take long at all to get those on there. So I'm doing that to all three of those bottles. I'm going to place a different decal on them and transfer them on, and it just really gives those bottles just that extra shabby goodness that we want. So once all of the bottles have their own little decal put on, I do go ahead and take some more of that fabric, in like the blue fabric, and I'm just going to wrap a little bit around the top of the neck of the bottle and just kind of glue it down just to give it a little bit of a base up there. And then that's where I'm going to glue down my little shabby bows that I made previously, because like I said, I wanted these bottles to just look every bit of, you know, that look that I'm going for, that shabby goodness, as I call it. And so I just felt like adding that fabric up there was definitely what it needed. And that way it doesn't just look so obvious that this was, you know, a Coke bottle or whatever. So, but I just simply glue that bow right up top there. And then the final product is just basically placing those flowers that we put on those skewers earlier. Just go ahead and stick one in each of these bottles, and that's it. I mean, you could put any kind of florals in there, do whatever you really want with them. I just went with the theme of my vintage flowers, and again, I just was in love with this. I stuck a little extra greenery in there just to give it a little extra touch, and y'all, this is still hanging up. Well, not hanging up. These are sitting on a shelf in my room, and I adore them. Okay, so this was a really fun flip. I found these wooden, y'all, and I don't know what they're called, but I had a lot of viewers let me know that these were for cooking. Like you can put your like fajita platters down on there or steak platters or something. I don't really remember. I just know that they were some sort of kitchen utensil. So I knew I wasn't going to use them for that. I had a totally different vision when I picked these up at the thrift store. I was like, nope, these are going to be perfect for pictures. So I'm using the technique of taking some candle wax and just kind of rubbing it all over the wood after, I sanded it down. I wanted to make sure I got any kind of gunk or anything off of the tops of these. And then I'm going to go over it with my plaster paint by Waverly. And I really want to say this only took like one coat. So that plaster stuff is amazing. And if you guys already, I mean, you guys should already know that's like my favorite color ever to work with. But once these were dried up, I went ahead and took my little scraper tool thing and went over those areas that had the wax. Now, the concept behind this is that the paint will, it'll pick up that paint that the wax was on, because you're just like scraping the wax off. Now, it would have worked better, and I've been told that if I would not have used my heat gun to dry the paint, if I would have just kind of let it do its own thing, it probably would have distressed a lot better. I think, that's probably very true. But I also think it's the material that you're using these things on, or you're doing it on and stuff like that. So I don't feel like it did such a bad job for this particular project. I think it distressed it pretty well. But there's other ways to do it. I'm going to be trying tape next time. We're going to see how that works. So this time I took some pictures that I found on Google. And these I just basically looked up like vintage ladies or whatever. And printed them out. And I ripped up the edges, as you guys know. Now this time around, I just basically ripped them, towards me, didn't wet it down or anything, and it still worked out just fine. So I'm going to decoupage those down in the center of this circle. And as you saw earlier, I found those stickers at Dollar Tree as well. I really liked the little ornate design of them, but I did not like the color. So of course I painted those as well with the plaster. So if you see stickers that you think are really cool, but maybe for whatever reason they're just like this color that just doesn't make sense, don't stress out about it, especially if you're going to use it for like little add-ons for projects or whatever. You can easily paint them. So that's what I did in this case. Now, I did have kind of a heck of a time trying to figure out how I wanted to to place those stickers, and I think I maneuvered them around like half a dozen different ways, but I was fine with how they turned out. I think they definitely added that extra little bit of ornateness to these vintage type pictures. And I've had a lot of feedback on these where you could just take like your old family photos, and do the same type of project with them. Like, of course, I'm going to make this look old, so I'm aging it with some, the antique wax and stuff as well. But think about using like your own vintage family photos. Like, you don't have to actually use the photo. Like, you can print out a copy of it. But how cool would that be to see like your own family and these type of photos that you can hang up on your wall? Like, I just love it. Like, I want to do that now. I'm going to find some old family photos of mine that are old like this and redo, I think, something similar to this, because this was so much fun and is just so sweet and special. Like, again, another project that I absolutely, absolutely adored. This this next video is actually very quick. Unfortunately, I didn't get enough footage the way that I would have liked to describe how I was doing this. But I'm taking some old, I took some old shutter doors, and I basically screwed together 3 doors like you see right here. So they're kind of standing up in like a C shape. Now I'm taking paint stir sticks and I'm basically making a top part of this that's going to go on the very top of this, and then I'm going to make shelves as well. So I painted them all up with the Rust-Oleum linen chalk paint, and I'm basically going to glue these together and use these as my shelves and my top part of my what is inevitably going to be a shelving unit. This was inspired by a friend off of Instagram. I believe it was Tony's DIY. She made a little adorable shelving unit using these shutter doors. And I have a habit of, if I see shutter doors at yard sales or thrift stores or stuff like that, I will pick them up because there's so many projects you can do with these and create with them that it's insane. So again, horrible footage of me putting some glue on the top, but you get the point. I'm basically putting my wood glue down. I'm going to put my my paint stir sticks on the top, and yes, I know that I didn't do like the perfect, you know, slatted paint stir sticks. They're going to have those little grooves in there, and I did not care whatsoever because, as you can see, the final product was super, super cool. And the shelves on the middle just basically glued in right there on those little slats, and it was easy peasy. I use this in my bathroom. It holds toilet paper, and it is one of my most favorite larger products I've ever made. Okay guys, this is probably one of the easiest things that you can make. This is just a simple little plastic watering can that I got from the 99-cent store. You can find them at Dollar Tree, I'm sure, or, you know, whatever, dollar store, whatever. I'm sure you can find any type of these cans anywhere, even the little metal ones and stuff like that. But I did not have like an old vintage watering can, and really I just thought this would be just something super fun and easy to do. So all I did was I put, I think, about 2 coats of my paint on there because I wanted to make sure that black was completely covered. Now I take a stencil. Now this is one of my Tim Holtz stencils. Absolutely adore Tim Holtz products. He does a lot of vintage ephemera and old school vintage stuff that I love. So this was a really cool ornate design that I thought would be perfect. Now I'm taking that pink color again. I absolutely love this. This, I believe, is Ballet Slipper chalk paint, Waverly chalk paint. And I'm just dabbing on my stencil and getting some of that pattern on my can. I was not worried about it being super perfect because, as you guys know, I wanted, it's inevitably going to get roughed up a little bit anyway because that's what I like to do to my stuff. So I wanted to look a little old, but at the same time, I wanted this to be very like sweet and, you know, just very pretty as well. So I'm kind of drying it up in between so that my layers weren't like sticking to each other and messing things up. But really all I had to do with this was stencil on that, that pattern that I like. And you can do whatever you wanted to. You could put words on there, any kind of design whatsoever. But for the sake of this project, I just wanted to have this really pretty design on there. And then all I did was simply shove a bunch of floral in the top and made this absolutely adorable little planner that I think is super, super cute. Now, I did have some suggestions to make it look even more realistic. Might have been to kind of like cut off that like strip that you can kind of see where the plastic, you know, was put together or whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, nobody's really paying attention to it, and I wasn't paying attention to it. So I just enjoy the fact that it's just really super simple, cute watering can, floral vase, I guess. And this is in my bathroom actually as well. I think it's just super sweet and precious, and I adore this one, like all of them. So believe it or not, we've reached the last project in this video. So if you guys are still here, oh bless y'all that you've listened to me ramble on for a good hour, but hopefully it wasn't too bad. So this is another one of my favorites. This is my most recent, absolutely favorite thing that I've made. And it's still, actually, it's not completed, but it will be here very soon. I found this super huge tray at the Goodwill. And it was covered in this leather material that it was coming apart. It didn't look really all that good. So I ripped it all up, and I'm basically sanding this whole thing down. You know, I didn't want that leather on there. So I wanted to sand this wood down because the bones of this was really sturdy, really, really good. I'm taking some glue gun there just to try to help get rid of some of that adhesive. But I think because it was so old, it was really hard to get rid of. Even sanding it off, anything, like you could still feel the tackiness. So I just went ahead and took some of this Mod Podge and went over all of the sides and edges that had that tacky feeling. And basically what it did was it sealed it, so that way you didn't have to, you know, worry about it, like when you're painting or anything like that. Like, it just sealed it up nice and good, and it was ready, set, go. So I'm taking some of the linen Rust-Oleum paint again, and I'm going to give this tray, like, I think I did maybe 2 coats on this too, just to get it completely covered. Really wasn't too worried about it if it had a little bit of wood showing through, because again, like I always do, I distress stuff. But I just wanted to make sure that at least that middle portion was nice and completely coated, because my plan is to put a decal, and you're going to see that here in just a minute. But I do go in the sides, I do the outsides, I do the back. I do it all, you guys, because this sucker, it was so big. I feel like this piece kind of took forever. I did distress the edges, like I just kind of scraped all the corners off. I think I probably tried the wax on this too, and it just really didn't do like the other ones had done for me. So no big deal. Like, it's still distressed enough for me that I enjoyed it. But you know, it is what it is. It turned out just fine, and I really like the aged look that I got out of it, even with just a little bit of distressing that I did on the corners and such. So this is the part that I'm taking this beautiful rub-on transfer that I did get off Amazon. I will have this in my store as well. This, oh my gosh, you guys. First of all, I love these transfers. This is the first one I've really ever used, and I can't tell you the name of it right now because I honestly cannot remember. But that's okay. I will have it listed for you guys. But it was definitely a work of love. There was a lot of labor of love in this, because it is a difficult thing to do. And I only say that because I guess I'm spoiled by the Dollar Tree ones being so simple, but this is such a heavy duty type decal that you have to take your time in making sure you get it down. So I was using the wood scraper tool that they provide you. I'm using my little picker tool. I mean, I'm trying all kinds of things just to help get this decal to transfer. And it also could be too that maybe I needed to seal it with the Mod Podge first. I think somebody did mention that. That might have helped it a lot better than just putting it down directly to the paint. But yeah, this definitely took some time to get this bad boy on there. But the end project was so worth it. I mean, you can see just right there, like, it is gorgeous. Like, I was so impressed with these transfers. Like, yes, it took time to do it. However, when it was all said and done, I was like, this is freaking gorgeous. So This, like I said, this is probably one of my favorite. I mean, all of these projects in this video are something that I adore, obviously, that I still use, I still have up and absolutely love. But this is something that I was so proud of, and it's not done yet because, and I even mentioned in this video, when I created, like when I first made this video, this is actually going to turn into a table. And so I was waiting on actually getting my drill. It was either going to drill fixed or get a new drill, which I ended up getting a new drill, because I needed to be able to put on my legs for this. So I am still in the process of putting legs on this, but when it's all said and done, it's going to be a gorgeous little table to have either, in my bedroom or in my living room. But I was so proud of this one, and yeah. So that is it, guys. That is all for this mega video. If you stuck around for the whole thing, bless your hearts. I love y'all so much. And until next time, you guys, stay safe. I love y'all. Take care.